on here. So, everyone, I am so happy that you are all here today. I'm Coach Nick. I've been a health coach for almost 10 years, certified personal trainer, nutritionist, and I'm going for my master health coaching certification as well. But I have a very special guest tonight, and it is Gerri. Gerri Kier is a top functional medicine practitioner, and I'm so excited for you guys to talk to her tonight because every time I talk to her, she literally blows my mind. So I'm going to open the floor up for you, Gerri. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, good evening, everyone. Like Nick said, I am Gerri Kier, and I am a certified natural health provider, a digestive enzyme specialist. I do functional neurology. Oh my gosh, the list of what I do goes on and on and on. And I love doing gut health. And where and I got to tell you about this. I just finished up a conference in Las Vegas for clinical metabolomics, which is metabolic biochemistry. Yeah, there is such a conference as biochemistry. Yep.
So break that down for us. What is that?
Okay. Well, it's called clinical metabolomics is the test that I run, and it literally lets us know where on a cellular level, like inside the cell, inside the mitochondria, what is happening with all your nutrients, with the vitamins, the minerals, the essential fats, the amino acids. Are there toxins? Do you have heavy metals in there? I mean, it's like a 27-page report that
Wow.
goes into the in-depths of the depths of your cellular health. And so anyway, yeah, we had a conference this last week in Vegas. Yeah, a bunch of geeky people hanging out. It was awesome. So I'm like one of those geeky people that like to hang out and have a lot of fun. So anyway, I have been some of my story is why I even got into this is I was a photographer for 22 years and I treated my body like a machine. I want to highly suggest none of you treat your body like a machine. It will break down.
And what do you
You
mean?
must
Like,
take
what do
care
you
of
mean
it.
by that?
Well, I was working 14-hour days photographing 60 weddings a year and pushing myself to the absolute max, and my body broke down. I got a tremor really bad in my left hand, and I couldn't hold the camera steady any longer. And so I went from making $250,000 a year to unemployed when I had to sell my business because I was no longer taking in focus photos.
Yeah.
Yeah, people weren't buying it that it was out of focus or that it was soft focus. No, it was jiggly out of focus because I had a tremor so bad from nerve damage in my armpit from working so hard. So I healed my body with nutrition.
Wow. And so that
So
process has brought you here where not only did you heal your body, but now you have this passion for helping others do the same.
yes,
How long have you been doing this?
22 years. So now I just finished up my 22nd year. So yeah, I've been in careers for 44 years now. So I started my photography studio when I was a senior in high school. I turned 18 and I photographed a wedding. So I did that for 22 years. And then at the age of 40, I had the blessed gift of reinventing myself. And wow, that was that was a lot. Because my never put never put who you are, your identity in your business
Mm.
because that can go away and then all of a sudden you have no identity. You don't know who you are. And so that was really scary. So anyway, um
And
two
so
weeks
being in it for 22 years, you're kind of ahead of the game. Like you've been in it for a lot longer than a
after,
lot of people. Like you've seen so much. So
oh,
give me a little background about your experience in the game because I know you've worked with Olympic athletes and like you've worked with a very broad spectrum. So tell us a little bit about your background.
yeah, it's amazing the clients that come through my door and the background is like a gamut of small children to I think my oldest client was 82 before she passed away. And I worked with her like 10 years to keep her rocking and rolling and going. And so the main driver that brings people into my office is gut health. That is the main driver that brings people in here. And as I was healing my body, the breakdown in my system literally came from my gut health. And so healing myself with food, through food. So the tremor that I had when I had to sell my studio, the tremor that I had, I literally healed it by cutting out coffee. That was a huge one for me. Typo blood types should not drink coffee. Not real good. So, just changing my diet, changing my lifestyle. And at that point, I was unemployed. And when you have to change your lifestyle, how many people on this call or that you come in contact with can literally become unemployed, afford to do that? And that's literally what hit me in the face. Oh my gosh, how many people are running themselves into the ground because they're not taking care of themselves with lifestyle? What are you eating? How are you sleeping? So critical. Are you working out? Are you drinking enough water? And so then that got me into, my first piece of equipment was a microscope. And so I was looking at blood through the microscope and seeing what the cells look like. And then it just transitioned and it just keeps growing every year. Like every year, it seems like something new, like this clinical metabolomics dropped
Yeah.
into my life 1 year ago. And so I'm always learning. I'm always in school,
Yeah.
always learning because there's always something new to learn.
The industry is transforming so fast.
Oh,
The research, like it's hard to keep up. And that's what's cool
yeah.
about the industry is that with all the new technology out, we're continuing to learn more and more. And so before I get too far into it, I want you to really, can you explain to everybody the importance of gut health and how it affects literally everything?
Everything. Yes. All disease and illness definitely starts in the colon.
Okay.
And so you must pay attention to the gut health. And how do you know what's going on with the gut? And things that people maybe not think is important is bowel movements. So one of the first questions I ask all my clients, so how many bowel movements you had today? And like had a new little client today, 12-year-old. I was like, so how many bowel movements? And she's like all embarrassed. I'm like, it's part of life. We do this every day, hopefully.
Yes.
And if you eat 2 meals a day, you should have 2 bowel movements a day. If you eat 3 meals a day, you should have 3 bowel movements a day. Look at a baby, look at a dog. They eat, they go to the bathroom. That's normal. So if you're not having at least one bowel movement, and the optimal time to have your first bowel movement is in the morning between 5 and 7 a.m. because that's when the colon is cleansing, mending, and detoxing. And so there's a lot you can know from just your bowel movement, like it's supposed to be. I know we're going to get graphic here. Hopefully,
Yeah.
nobody's eating dinner. It should be the consistency of toothpaste, about the size of a banana, if you're having enough bowel movements through the day.
Interesting.
And so, yeah, it's a guideline. And then the color, the color is very good. If it's too yellow or green, then you've got bile issues. And so that's where you can talk to a practitioner that hopefully is tracking that kind of stuff and knowing, okay, bile issues doesn't mean you have to get rid of your gallbladder. You just need to eat more bitter food. That helps with bile flow. And
Yeah.
then that can help with digestion. So are you eating arugula and endive and parsley and broccoli?
Yeah.
And make sure your broccoli is always cooked, lightly
Yeah.
steamed or roasted. Don't eat it raw. Um, anyway, that is how you some of the signs that things are going off in the colon, but the gut brain connection, all of the bacteria in the gut direct is connected on the superhighway called the vagus nerve,
Yes.
right? And that is your bacteria. So making sure your gut microbiome is working properly and is in proper balance so that you have proper digestion, breakdown of your food, fermentation of your food, so that you're actually getting nutrients out of all the amazing food that you're buying. Because
Yeah.
hopefully you're all buying certified organic food with no chemicals in it. And if you're buying really good food that's going to nourish your body, you got to make sure you're digesting it. Because if you don't digest it, it's really not becoming fuel.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's making you go sleepy.
Yeah,
So,
and so that's what's so interesting. And I really want to highlight the importance of like overall gut health as a whole, because that's one thing that people don't think about very often. They're like,
yeah.
well, I'm going to drink my water, I'm going to eat like fairly healthy. I'm going to sleep better and I'm going to manage my stress. And so these are the five main habits that we've been working on throughout this challenge. But
Right,
people don't take a look at like, okay, what about my gut microbiome? Like, am
right,
I optimized there? And based on what you said, I'm like, man, I even maybe have some room for improvement too, because I know I take one bowel movement a day in the morning. It's like clockwork every single day. So it's
right, right,
that like I'm like, oh, I feel like I have like a, but most of the way there, but there's always room for improvement. Now, what's
right.
really interesting that what I love about what you do is the specific data-driven approach that you use to help your clients. And so, will you walk us through that process and how you collect that data, but then also how you use that data to heal your clients? Because that's what you do. You're a healer, right?
Right, right. Yeah, it's a process because you want to make sure you're using the right bacteria, the right probiotics. Just don't be randomly throwing probiotics in there. Um, so I do the a stool sample test through Microbiome Labs, and the stool sample test, I do none of that collection. You all do that at home. I do none.
It's like,
Like,
you
how do
can't
we
pay
get
me
that
enough for that.
collection? Well, I don't do that collection. Y'all do that at home. And then you send that sample into the lab. However, I have the kits here. I have the sample, the stool sample kits here, and I get them out to clients. And then I explain how, I show with pictures how to do the stool sample collection. And then you send that to the lab. And then once the lab gets the sample, it takes about 3 weeks and I get the results back. And it's a 18-page report that tells us, are you eating too much meat? Are you getting fatty liver? Are there bad actors in the gut microbiome that's actually throwing off the whole balance? And then is there leaky gut? Is there SIBO? You can tell all of this kind of information from a stool sample test. And because of the different bacteria that are living in there or that are not living in there. And
Mhm,
so if the bad guys are living in there, we take those out first. Um, we take out the bad guys first, and then we start putting in the good bacteria, and then we start rebuilding the gut microbiome. So I never know what nutrients a client is going to be, using or needing. And somebody just asked, what does the stool sample cost? The actual stool sample without any of the nutrients, because I have no idea. Everybody is different. Everybody is viewed differently. There's not one thing thrown at everybody. Um, it is $459 for the stool sample test. And then whatever comes up that your body is needing in the order of
mhm,
how we put it in. And so one thing that can help tremendously to improve your odds with the stool sample test is to be eating bitter food. Eat in an 8-hour eating window.
okay.
So when you have that 16 hours off, then the gut microbiome can actually work and feed itself and ferment the food properly. When you're constantly putting food in, it's not getting a chance to do its proper job. And then that can throw off the digestion. And then you get the gas and the bloating and the indigestion and acid reflux. And that's not normal.
Hmm.
And most people come in, they think that's just normal because that's the household they grew up in. Mom had gas and bloating, dad had gas and bloating, they all had acid reflux. They've all taken Tums all their life. That is not normal.
Yeah.
That is not right. So be paying attention to that. So eating bitter food, eating in an 8-hour eating window, make sure you don't drink water with a meal.
I've heard that, and that's one of the
Yeah.
things. So, because when you drink water, it prevents your body from actually absorbing the nutrients, correct?
Well, and it waters down because that acid has to be the hydrochloric acid. Everything has to be those chemicals are working. You're a chemistry factory and a bacteria farmer. On a cellular level, that's just who you are. Um, and I'll get to the bitter fruits here in a minute, but the bacteria or the chemistry that's happening in the stomach. So your stomach is shaped like a cashew. And so for the first 45 minutes, the top part of the stomach expands. And that's where all the digestion, that's where all the food turns into an applesauce. It's called chyme.
Okay.
Okay. However, If you do not chew it and juice it totally before you swallow it, there are no teeth in here. And so there's no way to break down a chunk of meat.
Mm.
And so then 45 minutes after you've totally chewed, you take a bite, put the fork down, chew, 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 25 to 30 bites every single time because the saliva has the enzymes to digest the food.
Yes.
Anything cooked has no enzymes in it. So then it's 45 minutes churning around here. Then after 45 minutes, it smashes to the bottom part, and then that's where the hydrochloric acid is made. So you want all of those acids and all of those enzymes to be very powerful in their full form. If
Mm.
you're drinking ice water or ice drinks, no sodas, soda has that should be banned. It should never have been made ever in the first place.
Yeah.
Soda, anything iced, will actually stop enzyme activity. So you want to, if you're drinking water, if you have to drink water when you're eating, you didn't chew your food enough and you're choking, okay, just slow down. Nobody's going to take the food away from you. Just chew your food, swallow it. Then what happens is when that hydrochloric acid is made, it unwinds that protein into an amino acid. If you are not having enough chewed up meat, that hydrochloric acid can't break that protein down into an amino acid. Then you don't have building block for your muscles.
Interesting.
And so then also when you're looking at your plate, the size of the palm of hand is your protein size.
Yep.
Okay. 50 to 70% of your plate should be covered with veggies.
Yeah.
A salad with green beans, a salad with broccoli,
Yeah.
whatever. Having 50 to 70% covered. Always eat vegetables with your protein because that has the minerals because that your body needs when that protein is hit with hydrochloric acid, unwinds into an amino acid. Acid ash is the residue left behind. What buffers that acid ash are the minerals in the vegetables you ate with that meal. If you don't have enough minerals from the veggies from that meal, then the blood will pull the minerals from your natural resources. And when that pulls from the natural resources, you're pulling calcium from the bones, magnesium from the muscles, potassium, and that can hurt your heart. Easiest one is sodium. Sodium pulled from the bile will create gallstones. Those are made in the liver, get hung up in the gallbladder. The gallbladder becomes the bad guy. And it was because you didn't eat enough vegetables with your meat.
And
So,
the unfortunate reality is vegetables are like
oh,
not even part of the standard American diet anymore,
oh,
unless
yeah,
they're fried fries.
right.
Like it's very crazy. And then we wonder why. Why are
Yeah.
we sick here?
Yeah, we're very
Because
sick.
stuff. And no, but people aren't sharing this type of information. Like this,
Yeah.
I am like a certified nutritionist. I've been that way for it's been 7 years now, and I still like am learning stuff from you about how you compare food together.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
in this sea of almost overwhelming information, what are some like actionable things? So, pair your protein with vegetables so that way you can actually get
Yes.
the most out of the
Yep.
protein. Number one, what are a couple other like action items that people can do right now to optimize their gut? And how fast were those action items actually like yield results?
Immediately. Immediately add bitters to every single meal. And bitter food would be arugula, endive. Parsley is a bitter food.
Hmm.
And then so is broccoli.
Okay. So
And
how much bitter food?
okay, a cup of arugula
Okay.
in your, like with your romaine lettuce salad.
Hmm.
So a cup of your leafy or like a half a cup of broccoli. And if you're not eating bitter food, you want to be using bitters. And I use a couple different kinds of bitters, liquid bitters on the tongue, and then that will connect your brain to your gut through the vagus nerve. And then the superhighway is the bacteria that's carrying the information up and
Interesting.
down the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve, a lot has to happen with the vagus nerve. And so what brings the vagus nerve online is broccoli. Raw broccoli, you want to raw broccoli, your cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, you want to make sure that they are cooked to break them down, not cooked really hard, just lightly steamed. So when you're making broccoli and you're looking at it, it'll be that real sharp, bright chartreuse green.
Yeah.
So having glass lids, cooking in pots with glass lids so you can watch when your green beans and broccoli turn that chartreuse green, pull it off, and that's when you eat it. It's still kind of crunchy and it's broke down, and then it will be easier on your body to digest, and then you won't have chemical issues. And there's still research out on it, but they are feeling that the raw broccoli, raw cruciferous,
Yeah.
can affect the thyroid function. And
Oh,
so just lightly cook your cruciferous. Kale is one of the cruciferous. Steam that or saute it a bit. Always
interesting.
have your spinach raw, your kale steamed. And if you're putting kale into your smoothie in the morning, you can steam a batch of it, put it in the fridge, and then just, put it in your smoothie in the morning, whatever you're chopping it up, and it doesn't matter anyway.
Yeah.
Um, what other thing did you ask me, Nick? Oh, tips?
Yeah, so we've got power, pair your protein with
Oh,
vegetables so that
oh,
you
one
can
thing.
bitters so that you
Yep,
can
yep,
activate the pathway from your gut or your brain to your gut through the vagus nerve, and
yep.
then maybe like one or three more. I mean, everybody's
Okay.
on the edge of their
No
seat,
fruit,
just like
no
me.
fruit with meat.
Okay.
Only with, once you put meat into your system, it takes 12 hours. This is the food combining stuff that I've talked with you about. Meat takes 12 hours to digest. So once you put protein flesh, anything that blood ran through it, you don't eat you don't eat fruit for that day. Because if you eat an egg at 7 a.m., it's still in there at 7 p.m. So when you make that commitment for your breakfast, I'm having an egg, then you're going to have just protein flesh and vegetables the whole entire day.
Okay.
And that will cut gas and bloating because the sugar in the fruit will ferment the protein, causing gas and bloating. So
It's
if you have gas and bloating, that could be one little tip of, well, let me just try it for a day, see how that works, and make sure you're chewing your food. If you don't chew your food enough, you're not getting enough enzymes. So the way your saliva is broke down, 60% of the saliva is for carbohydrate. 30% is for protein, 10% is for fat.
kind
And
of
so
like the breakdown of how you should be eating anyway, right? For the most part.
for the most part,
Yeah.
right. And so really making sure, and your carbohydrate from produce, not from pasta, right?
We need to really highlight that. Gerri, like if you're gonna learn thing from Gerri, it's whole foods. If you are looking to optimize your gut health, whole
Right.
foods, low sugar, like one of our habits, is like it's the only way to go.
Yep.
So when you add these processed foods, like even like rice or spaghetti or I mean the plethora of processed foods that we can go down the list how can we enjoy some of those things? This is my wife down there. How can we enjoy some of those things? Uh,
Oh, Janan, you're so funny. Okay. You know what?
without
Uh,
causing damage. That was the thing I was getting to. How can we enjoy some of these things without causing damage or not feeling guilty? Because at the end of the day, we're looking at the long-term approach, right? We
sure.
want to create
Yeah.
balance in lives. And so
Yeah.
how can we enjoy these things without the long-term
Well, you can really like for typo blood types using the garbanzo bean pasta. And
Mm,
if you're a type A blood type, having more of the quinoa rice. And if you're type O, you can do um, the quinoa rice pasta. It's still processed, but if you're going to be eating pasta and you're not eating spaghetti squash,
yeah.
because some people think it's quite a stretch to eat spaghetti squash for pasta. Just saying. So it's like not everybody's ideal because the texture is not right. You want the
Yeah.
texture of pasta. And so it's the wheat pasta. If you're eating wheat pasta, make sure that it comes from imported from Italy. Because in Italy, they just do not have the glyphosates in
Yeah.
their wheat. The
Yeah.
United States, it's so full of glyphosates. It's not worth it because you're working so hard, you guys, on cleaning up your bodies and detoxing and don't put chemicals in there. So be so careful of where your food's coming from. Only certified organic produce. Make sure your meat doesn't have antibiotics in it. People go, I don't take antibiotics. Well, are you eating organic meat? Well, no. Are you eating organic eggs? No. Okay. not eating organic eggs, you are eating high dose of antibiotics, which is killing your gut microbiome, which is then making a home for the bad actors to live in. So then when we get the stool sample test back, we just have more. I can see exactly how much infliction you have had of antibiotics over your lifetime through this stool sample test.
Even if they've fixed it a little bit.
Yeah, it
Wow.
shows. It
That's
shows.
powerful.
It shows. And so then that takes a little bit more direction on how to bring that back around. And so a gut restoration program, it's 3.5 to 4 months long because it takes that
Intensive.
long. Yeah, for the
Intensive.
body to fix it. So chewing your food is probably one of the biggest things that I can say. People don't chew, you inhale. And then why you get a lunch hour is so that you can have a bowel movement.
Ooh, interesting. And that's one thing that I've always been a big advocate on is like mindful eating, meaning
Yes.
also slowing down
Right.
your food intake. And it's one of those easy things that you don't think about, but it will literally change the way that your
Yeah.
relationship with food, because
Yeah.
when you slow down, not only is your body digesting it better, you're enjoying it more, it's actually you're building this relationship with this food that's nourishing you instead of just like I'm inhaling this thing, which all of us are guilty of at times. We're busy. I'm driving sometimes. I'm powering down a burrito while I'm going to where I need to go. And
No.
I know, I know. Hey, but normalizing, so normalizing some of those things though. And so, and that's like what's very interesting about what you do is that what's that gap that you are, how do you bridge the gap between that standard American diet and transitioning to this gut optimal, like the health or the optimal gut health protocol? Like it's because I know you take people through and you have to overhaul a lot, but how do you ease into it to get here? Like, what's your recommendation?
Well, it really all depends on how ill the individual is that's coming into my office. Now, I'll have a lot of people go, "Oh, I'm great. I'm fine. I feel great. I just want a checkup." And then, okay. Well, then sometimes with those clients, they are more resilient
Mm,
and, we just make hard stop. Okay, this is where you must stop now
mm,
if you really don't want to end up with arthritis. Because arthritis is a 20 to 30 to 40 year process. You don't catch that,
yeah,
right? And so let's start now. And now, like my new little gal who came in here today, she is not well. And so we have to really start slow with her, or she will fall off the edge of the cliff, right? And
yeah,
so we're starting really tiny slow. They're already eating all certified organic. She has had no gluten since she was 7 years old. She's 12. So her mom has done a lot. And the big thing now is cutting sugar.
mm,
Must cut sugar. She has to cut her sugar. And she is at a point now, though, where we're not going to ease her off of it. It's like it's coming off and she might get headaches. And we're just going to be, working with having enough produce in there to wash, get it moving out. And then also drinking enough water, getting sleep, 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 enough sleep so her body can actually rebuild. And then making sure she's digesting her protein and her fat. She's craving sugar because she's not digesting fat.
interesting.
So when she's not digesting fat, she needs fuel now. And so now she's craving sugar. So we got her on a digestive enzyme to digest the fat. And then that will help her. She'll have more fats then in her diet at night. And definitely nothing after 6 p.m. She will eat nothing after 6 p.m. because you want to make sure you have minimum 4 hours before you go to bed, ending your food. That way you'll sleep better and your body can actually heal instead of spending half of the night digesting your food. If
That's
that's happening, you're getting nothing, you're getting no benefit from the sleep.
I've been talking about that through this challenge as well, is when you eat before you go to bed, you are not actually resting when
No,
you are sleeping
no,
because
no.
your metabolic processes in your body are still working. You're expending energy, so you're not actually resting. I always thought it was 2 hours, but this is where the data comes in and shows three, correct?
3, 4 is best.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and let that fully digest so that you can fully sleep and be well rested and wake up. If you don't wake up full of energy and like, okay, I'm ready to start this day.
Yeah.
How close to bedtime were you eating, especially popcorn? Oh my God.
You said Pop
Popcorn.
Tarts.
No, popcorn. And
Oh, oh.
that's pure sugar. That is a way to screw up your insulin.
Mm,
And if you got skin tags around your body, you're insulin resistant already, and it's not showing up in your A1C and your glucose yet. However, that's insulin resistance, skin tags.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Little,
so
yeah.
no popcorn.
Okay, so the
No.
top four things that you've said so far, and I'm curious what you'd be the fifth one. So the number one thing that you said was making sure, or so we'll just go down
Yeah.
in the process of what I think would be top to bottom. It's mindful eating, slowing down, and chewing your food.
Shoot. Yep.
Right? That is the most important thing. And then number two would be probably in the most important to lowest, I would say preparing or not eating fruit with meat because
Yep.
that'll mess up the bile. But then number three was eating meat with vegetables and then adding bitters so that you activate that highway from your brain to your gut to actually do the digestion. What is the fifth thing that if you had to tell somebody, if you do this, you will see a tremendous difference in your gut health? What's that fifth thing?
Have gratitude.
Oh,
Be grateful. Be grateful that you have the brain to make the choices and be happy. If you sit down at a meal and you are angry, you will not digest that meal. And it can actually create a whole downstream situation. So make sure that if you're upset, don't eat.
interesting. Because your hormones are off balance, you have a high
Yep.
level of cortisol, and it
Yep.
disrupts everything, including your ability to digest food. Wow.
Blows it
Not
apart.
expecting that. I was
Yep.
not expecting that one.
Be grateful. Be grateful for the food that you have and that for the hands that prepared it. And that and this is how I grew up. If it took mom an hour to fix the meal, we had to stay at the dinner table together for an hour and eat.
Oh.
So however long it took mom to cook, that's how long we stayed at the table. And we still to this day do that.
That's just so incredible. We have gone through a lot today, guys. This has been an incredible training. Gerri, thank you so much. The five top things in this training will literally change your gut biome in a very, very fast way. And so if you want to see results, this is what you do. And Gerri, do you have a resource or a guide or anything to give people that has some of this information?
Yes, if I can, I do have a guide and then I have the information on like the stool sample test and stuff like that. I can shoot it over to you.
Perfect, and I'll send it to everybody here. But if you're
Yeah.
okay with it, I would like to open this up to, I know Charlie's got some questions. I'd like to open it up to some of the people here to ask some questions and maybe pick your brain a little bit. Is that all right?
Sure. Hi, Charlie.
Hi.
Yeah, and
I was going with the Pop-Tart questions.
we're not having Pop-Tarts. We're having
So,
popcorn.
so I have a question because of what you're saying with the apples. So part of the program that I run, I'm working with athletes, elite athletes, college level. I'm building out a whole program. How? Because I'm assuming there's a different type of eating when you're an elite athlete. What you do fit in? And obviously it would help advance them, but how do you communicate that to an athlete that has to eat a certain way and still get the nutrition and the protein that they need in addition to the extreme amount of workouts that they're getting? How does that fit in for you?
Yeah.
Well, and it comes down to Charlie, how are they digesting the food that they're taking in? Are they actually getting all the nutrients out of the food that they're taking in? Or are they flushing a lot of it down the toilet, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what it comes down to. Yeah, they may be taking in a lot of nutrients. However, okay, you said the meals or the way they have to eat. Is it the way they feel they have to eat or the way they're directed by their coach or how?
That's what I'm thinking is as this comes out, a lot of these elite athletes, and as I start to move into more professional athletes, like a lot of that stuff is already regulated by I'm assuming nutritionists, but I'm
Sure.
wondering how much of it is being, somebody like with your expertise in the gut health is affecting their performance because they're not eating
Right,
the way. And
right.
I had no idea. You don't eat an
Yeah.
apple, even if you have eggs in the morning. You don't
Oh,
eat an apple that day. I had no
yeah.
idea, and I'm sure there's tons of athletes that don't know that.
Yeah, and when you actually you break your fast. Okay, so breakfast is you're breaking your fast from sleeping in a desert all night long. All right. You've been through a desert all night long. You've not had any water. So you break your fast first with water. Hydrate so you don't overeat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you break your fast with fruit. When you break your fast with fruit, fruit takes 2 hours to digest. Unless you're eating mangoes, banana, and grape, they take 3 hours to digest. So you can have a 2 hour fruit, 2 hour fruits in the morning to break your fast. Then after that 2 hour fruit, go ahead and go into your protein.
Mm-hmm.
And then making sure you're digesting it, having enough produce with it so
Mm-hmm.
that you're actually getting all the fuel. Okay, so your body, you're a chemistry factory. All of that, we can pull our car up to the gas station, fill it up with fuel, we're gone. We are the refinery. All of that raw material coming in has to create fuel to drive our body.
Mm.
Are the raw materials going in optimal to create the optimal high octane that the body is requiring? And part of that optimal high octane of the body requiring, you got to digest it.
Mm-hmm.
And if the gut microbiome is off, that throws off the chemistry in the gut, and then it's not going to be properly digested. And it can actually lead to building fatty liver. I mean, I've had really lean people with fatty liver because they didn't fully digest their protein, or we're
Interesting.
having actually too much of the wrong protein.
And so to add on to this, because I've worked with athletes in the past who they're trying to put on mass in order to be a more competitive athlete in their respective sport, football, hockey players.
Mhm.
They have to put on mass and they have to do it fairly quickly over an off season. And you just kind of eat whatever you can at that point when you're trying to put down 4,000 calories, right? And so how do you like, because in eating that type of way, it's really, really hard to hit 3 to 4,000 calories eating this way. So,
Yeah.
what are your recommendations for athletes in that regard?
Yeah. Athletes in that regard, they definitely have they actually have different eating plan. And where it catches up to them is when they're 60, 70, and 80 years old.
Mm,
Mm.
okay.
You
Is
So
know,
there
is
an
it
eating?
short term, they can do that, right? So
right?
short term, it's like it's like you almost have to sacrifice one for the
Right.
other.
You
Like
got to
gut
clean
health
it
and
up.
putting on mass kind of don't really go hand in hand together because the types of foods that you have to eat in order to
Right.
put on that mass
Right.
don't really support gut health. So it's kind of a either this or that, not a this and that.
Well, if
Right.
they're eating meats, they can have their vegetables, and it's breaking the enzymes. Correct?
As long as it's certified organic, not
Okay.
cooked. Well, any kind of meat that's cooked, all the enzymes are destroyed. So then you have to supplement with, because anything cooked over 110 degrees destroys the enzymes in it. Because everything has enzyme in it. Everything. Everything that's organic has an enzyme in it because it will decompose on your counter. If your fruit does not decompose on your counter, it is not food. It's
Wow.
been irradiated, right? And so there's no enzymes in it. So it actually has no nutritional value because there's no enzyme in it to digest it. And so when you're eating high protein, so you just have to look at how long is this going to be happening and then tapering off from it so you're not sacrificing your health come your 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Mm,
Interesting.
And I pull DNA tests. I do DNA testing. I do not have the body structure. My family does not have the body structure to be large bodybuilders. We are more endurance trained athletes. And there are people who literally, I have a friend, she is all kinds of Miss Natural, in physique. She is amazing. That is her DNA though.
Mm.
And so she's not trying to be anybody she's not trying to be. That she's
I have
not.
one other question because I am heading up a project through a nonprofit called Warrior Rescue, where I'm
Oh,
actually part of building out mental health facilities around the United States for these veterans.
oh, cool. Yeah.
How much looking at veterans' issues with PTSD, depression, all these types of issues that they're dealing with, what level from a scale from 1 to 10 is creating this good gut health for them to
Oh, huge,
overcome these issues?
huge. It's
Okay.
huge. It's
your
it's
emotions are everywhere,
oh,
right?
everywhere. Yeah, and your emotions will actually alter your gut health. And so working with PTSD, I actually have worked with like an Army Ranger, and I do trauma release therapy,
Mhm.
TRE, from Dr. David Briselli. So first you got to deal with the PTSD, take them out of sympathetic nervous system overload,
Mhm.
and then you can help to remodel the gut more efficiently because the emotions will take the microbiome out.
And
Love
the
it.
emotions are more powerful than the superhighway in the gut. They're literally going to
Oh
hit
yeah.
on one thing.
Yeah. Your
Okay.
Do
emotions
you
override.
mind sending Nick your contact information? I would love to get in contact with you. I've got a lot more
Sure.
questions and like would love to do some work with you in the future too.
Okay, Charlie, sure. Yeah. Nick has my info, and so yeah, he can definitely pass it on to you. That would be great.
I don't have
Unless
your info. You just magically showed up here today.
I'm magic.
Thank you for your time. I just got so much out of this. It was so great. Love
Great.
it.
You're welcome.
Yes. Lisa, Janan, open the floor up to either of you ladies if you want to ask any questions. I do have one if neither one of them have any question. It looks like they're good, but my question for you is sugar.
Oh,
So I know that, but it's so hard to avoid sometimes because it's such a staple for people's lifestyles. So can you just talk a little bit about sugar and its destructive nature, first of all, and because what if you have an addiction to sugar? Like, how do you break that? What's the process of getting away from sugar? Because I have another client that it struggles with that. She's had a sugar addiction for a while.
yeah.
And so how do you break that?
It's once again, it's your microbiome hijacking your brain. Um, and okay, so your tongue, this is so cool, you guys. Every 10 days you have new taste buds. Every 10 days you got new taste buds. So if you can go 10 days without having sugar, you won't crave. When you go 20 days without sugar on the 21st day, you will no longer desire. However, you eat one thing of sugar, you start all over.
Wow.
The taste buds, because those taste buds will upregulate immediately. So, on the sugar world, there is the yeast and candida, there are microbiome that are feeding off of sugar. And so, what I do the beginning of every year, I do a 21-day flora blitz. And it's a microbiome blitzing cleanse, kind of, I guess you would say. And we cut sugar out. And it's a program. And that is how I get clients to cut sugar because we have in October, Halloween, I call it the sugar season, Halloween to Easter. Kids have higher ear infections, sinus infections, colds, flu. It's higher. They say, oh, it's because it's winter months. No, it's because of sugar consumption, because on the microscope, I can see the white blood cells the white blood cells should be moving and vacuuming and cleaning and keeping that whole blood terrain really nice and clean for the blood cells to float around in. When you eat a lot of sugar, the white blood cells sit, not moving. It looks like somebody took a number 2 pencil and just drew a circle around them. They're inactive. It shuts down immune system. So when you eat sugar, you're shutting down your immune system. And so
Interesting.
then you're going to be sick. And then you're feeding more of the microbiome and you're throwing off your gut. And so sugar is the most lethal legal food that you can actually eat.
Mm,
It is so bad. And they call molasses the byproduct and sugar the commodity.
yeah.
Molasses is the commodity, sugar is a byproduct. Molasses is the highest or not amino acids, electrolytes, the cleanest, because those plants go down 20 to 30 feet into the earth to grow that plant. The leaves or the roots go all the way down to grow that plant.
Okay.
Cleanest minerals you can get is in molasses.
Huh.
And so at night, if you're having a hard time having bowel movements in the morning, you can take a tablespoon of molasses, put it in hot water, make a tea, or take it straight up. And it's really high in magnesium.
Mm,
And so it refills essentially those reservoirs that you've depleted from eating your meat without your veggies. You get your potassium, your magnesium, your sodium, iron is really good, and it's a form of iron men can take. Men should not take iron supplements. And so that is a form of iron that men can take. And it comes from the sugar plant or the sugar beet or cane, cleanest electrolytes you can take, and you'll sleep really well. And then you'll have a bowel movement in the morning because of the high molasses content of magnesium.
So you
Gerri,
just
I lied. I lied, and I have one more question, and I don't know if you could answer this, but I'm just thinking now with people with their addictions to drugs and alcohol,
Yeah.
does
Okay.
this help with gut health? Is there anything proven out there that gut health with any type of addictions can help overcome that quicker?
Okay, Charlie, where that really comes in is in the DNA.
Okay.
Like I have all the addiction genes, all of them, because I have alcoholism on both sides of my family. So I've got all the alcohol addiction genes in the highest form that you can get them. And then I've got the cannabis gene that if I smoke cannabis, I could become schizophrenic.
Wow.
And so a lot of the addiction, so now it's like pick your poison on what your addiction is. So now my addiction is learning. I used to drink a lot and now it's like, no, there's no leeway in my world to even drink. So I haven't really drank heavily since like I was in my 20s. Um, and so the addiction, you can with food, it takes a lot of mental reprogramming though with
Mhm.
addiction. And what are they emotionally? Are they emotionally running from something?
Yeah.
How are they self-medicating?
Yeah.
That's
That's
like,
part of the process that I go through to
yeah,
figure that out quickly. So I was wondering with what I do and what you do,
yes,
that combination could
yeah,
really just be amazing.
I mean,
yeah,
that's
because
why
there,
you're both here. Just saying.
Yeah.
there, there is food that you can put those addiction genes back in the little genie bottle, I say. And that would be literally running the DNA on that client just to see what what level are you actually dealing with on a genetic level?
Mm-hmm.
And then what could be, because I had one client, he just swore he had all the addiction genes because he loved to drink and he just couldn't stop drinking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And his DNA showed he had no addiction genes, none of them for alcohol.
Oh,
And he was very disappointed because then he had to like literally look at his lifestyle choice.
yeah. Right.
He told himself a story in his
He,
head.
He did.
yeah.
He
He
did.
identified himself as
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
alcoholic where he's like, oh, it's my genetics, it's just in my
Yeah.
my DNA makeup. And you're like, actually, sir,
Yeah.
let's take a little
Yeah.
bit deeper of a look here. Man,
Yeah.
you have provided so much incredible value, Gerri.
Yeah.
I'm like so grateful for your time here. I want to be respectful of your time because I know, are you getting ready to travel again? I'm guessing it's coming up soon.
Not until I don't have a boarding pass until the end of January.
That is like the first time all year. If you guys don't know, I met Gerri out in Utah and we just clicked immediately. Somebody knew, asked me what I did. They're like, oh, you have to meet Gerri. Boom. And here we are. So everything happens in divine timing. And I'm so grateful to have you here today. And yeah, I am just looking forward to continuing to do this with you. So thank you very much.
Excellent. You bet. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you all for being here and always live with vitality. That's what I tell everybody. Live with vitality
And gratitude.
and gratitude.
They're the key to
Gratitude
life.
over every meal.
Oh, I
Okay?
love that. All right, Gerri, have a wonderful night. Thank you so much for being here.
You bet.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.